Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. My name is Burke Kapler, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Today is Sunday, September 5th, and our theme for this month is Embracing Possibility. Whether this is your first time joining us online or this is your regular Sunday morning destination, we're glad you're here. UUCA is an intentionally welcoming congregation open to people of all backgrounds, races, genders, sexual orientations, and abilities. At UUCA, we encourage people to come for community, find inspiration, and live with purpose. We hope today's service inspires you, challenges you, uplifts you, heals you, and gives you lots to think about. And as always, you can continue the conversation and share your thoughts and reflections with others during our virtual coffee hour on Facebook after the service. Thank you for joining us today, and again, welcome.
Good morning. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, Labor Day is an annual celebration of the social and economic achievements of American workers. But labor can be more than just work for economic ends. The theme of today's service is labors of love. This Sunday, we explore what it means to find passion in the activities that you love, even if that pursuit involves effort. Nancy Brown, Amy Shields, and I will reflect on labors that bring joy to our lives. Now, please join me as we light this morning's chalice. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for love. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing warmth and light to the world.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance, let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your bodies learn to bend, just like a willow in the wind. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance.
I've been thinking a lot lately about the different hobbies that folks have picked up during the pandemic. You know, bread baking was a big deal at the beginning of the pandemic, and folks have learned lots of different things and explored lots of different hobbies at different times during the pandemic, at least folks who've had the time and the space to do that. I also think about how the pandemic has potentially given folks the opportunity to focus on hobbies that they maybe already had. For me, the pandemic brought an opportunity to begin a Scottish Highland dance school. So for the past 8 years or so, I've been taking Scottish Highland dance lessons. I've been competing. I've done shows everywhere from St. Louis to the US Capitol to the George Washington Masonic Memorial. It's something that I really love to do. And in the past year, I've had the opportunity to share that joy of dancing with other people as I have come together and started this school with a few other women in the area. And it's hard to explain in a place like DC, where so many folks are incredibly career focused, this aspect of my life that doesn't match with my professional life at all. I often hear people joke that in DC, the second question anyone ever asks you when they meet you after asking you your name is, "So what do you do?" And I sometimes feel like in this culture of finding your side hustle and getting ahead, having hobbies or joys or passions that don't sort of neatly fit into that professional idea of who we are and what we should be striving for feels a little bit out of the norm. And on this Labor Day weekend, I also reflect on how the labor movement at its core was about making sure that folks don't have to work 18 or 20 hours a day just to make ends meet. And part of the purpose of what we have fought for, what we continue to fight for, is giving people space and time for rest, for something other than work, for the opportunity to do something purely for the joy of doing something that's not work. It's a fight that we continue to fight today as we talk about things like living wage. So we still talk about people shouldn't have to work 14 and 16 and 18 hours and multiple jobs just to put food on the table for their families. And so in some ways, I think about having this passion that's maybe outside of the norm as a way to fight against those expectations about how we should be defined by our careers or defined by the things that we do at work. But the real reason that I do it is because I love it. And the feeling that I get when I get up on stage to perform, or when one of my students finally gets a movement that they've really been working on, it's not like any other feeling. And it comes from here. It fills me up here. And so I invite you today on this Labor Day weekend to contemplate the things that fill you up here, and to think about the things that you engage in and the things that you do that bring you joy and that make your face light up when you talk about them. And I encourage you to consider how you might get a little bit of that this weekend, make a little bit of time and space, and find an opportunity to do something that fills your heart and fills your soul.
The Sandcastle Contest by Robert Munsch. Matthew's father stood in the driveway and said, "I think we're all ready to go. Let's make sure everything is here. Do we have the bicycles?
Yes.
Do we have the food?
Yes.
Do we have the boat?
Yes.
Do we have everything?"
No, yelled Matthew.
No, said Matthew's dad.
No, said Matthew. We don't have a dog.
Dog, said his dad. We don't even own a dog.
I know, said Matthew. Now would be a good time to get a dog.
No dog, said his dad. Now, do we have everything?
No, yelled Matthew. We don't have my sandbox.
Matthew, said his mom, we can't bring the sandbox, but the first place we camp will have a nice beach, and you will have lots of sand to play with.
Well, said Matthew. Okay. So they drove and drove and drove and drove and drove until they came to a place to camp. Matthew jumped out of the van and ran to the beach. He came to a girl making a small sandcastle and a big sand dog.
She said, Hi, my name is Kalita and I'm going to win the sandcastle contest.
Wow, said Matthew. I'm going to build a sandcastle too. What can I win?
You can win a bathtub full of ice cream, said Kalita.
All right, said Matthew. So Matthew made a house with doors and windows and a roof. He dug out the inside of the house so it had rooms just like a real house. He made sand tables and chairs and beds and a TV that had a sand show on it. When Matthew was almost done, Kalita came over to look at his house. She had her sand dog on a leash.
Nice sand house, said Kalita.
Really, really nice sand dog, said Matthew.
A judge came by and said, "Get this house out of here. Who put this house on the beach?"
This is my sand house, said Matthew. I made it for the sand contest.
Ha, said the judge. I know a real house when I see one, and there are no real houses allowed on the beach. Then he went inside and sat in a sand chair and watched a sand show on TV. Another judge came by and said, "Get this house out of here. Who put this house on the beach?"
This is my sand house, said Matthew. I made it for the sand contest.
Ha, said the judge. I know a real house when I see one, and there are no real houses allowed on the beach. She went into the bedroom and looked at the sand bed. She went into the kitchen, opened the refrigerator, and looked at the sand apples and the sand celery and the sand cartons of milk. Then she said, "Little boy, you've got to get this house off the beach."
This is my sand house, said Matthew, and I'm going to prove it.
Ha, said the judges.
So Matthew went outside and kicked the sand house right beside the door. It all turned back into an enormous pile of sand and fell on the judges.
Help, yelled the judges, and everyone came running and dug them out. When the judges were finally out from under the sand, they yelled, "Matthew wins! His sand house was so good we thought it was a real house."
Matthew wins, everyone yelled, and they gave him a bathtub full of ice cream. Matthew started eating the ice cream, and he said to Kalita, "Want to help me eat this?"
"Yes," said Kalita.
While they were eating the ice cream, Matthew said, "How come you didn't tell everybody that your dog is sand? I bet you would have won with the sand dog."
"Well," said Kalita, "this is Sandy, my sand dog, and I'm going to take him camping and feed him ice cream every day, and he is going to be my pet, and I'm never going to turn him back to sand."
Wow, said Matthew. I wish I had thought of that. Can you show me how to make one?
"No problem," said Kalita.
And Matthew's mom and dad were so happy with Matthew's amazing sand dog that they decided to take it camping.
Good morning. My name is Nancy Brown. The shutdown started. I naively hoped it would only last a few weeks. Living alone, I knew I needed to stay connected to people, so I took a hard look at the online classes and events UUCA was offering. I was intrigued by the title, Meditative Doodling or Praying in Color, and started joining Leanne and others via Zoom every Tuesday morning. It provided an anchor to my day, an hour of contemplation in silence or with quiet music, but in the company of others who became friends. It was a chance to focus on whatever was on my mind or heart, and to consider what it meant to me. It was also a time for messing about with various art supplies I'd acquired over the years, but rarely touched anymore. And I appreciated having a set time that got me to use them. NPR talks about appointment listening. Well, this became appointment doodling for me. I don't think of it as a spiritual practice, but it probably is one. It is contemplative, an opportunity to quiet my mind, to be in the moment, to think about the past week, and it definitely reflects the essence of who I am. Early on, my doodles were a direct response to the pandemic and quarantining in my home. As an introvert, I'm happy with time alone, but like all of us, I'd never experienced anything like this before. I tried to stay positive, expressions of gratitude for all that I had, acknowledgments that we are all in this together, and thoughts of friends and family. But the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement took my doodling in a different direction. I realized how often I had skipped over the details about police killings of Black Americans and spent time focused on their names and stories. By July of last year, the horror of systemic racism was being exposed. COVID deaths reached 138,000 in the US, and the economic crisis laid bare the perils of our permanent underclass. Still, Leonard Cohen's phrase about the cracks are where the light gets in gave me a little hope. At least some light was getting in as our country started to grapple with these issues. Of course, COVID came up repeatedly as a theme throughout the 18 months. I responded to the soaring numbers of the sick and climbing death counts. On December the 14th, 2020, we had 3,124 deaths on that day, more than the number of Americans who died during the Pearl Harbor attack in 1941, more than died on 9/11. The total number of deaths in the US was then more than 300,000. In February 2021, the total surpassed 500,000 deaths, more than all of the American deaths in World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined. Now the total is over 617,000 deaths for the US and 3.8 million worldwide. Each person lost a blow to family, to friends, to us all. I couldn't ignore politics and the other headlines and doodled about them too. I responded to mass shootings, Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, the fears and hopes associated with the presidential election, the insurrection, the inauguration. Often I was inspired by our UUCA online services, the Daily Word during Lent, or Monday Night Meditation with Jonathan Faust. Old favorites, like The Infinite Possibilities for Love, came out in several forms. Others showed up once. Because meditative doodling has a set day and a limited length of time, I don't really worry about whether I feel like doing it or whether the resulting work is good or bad. I just do something. The time has allowed me to experiment with media and forms I had never tried, like word clouds capturing complex feelings and trying pastels for the first time. I feel free to play with lots of different media and with images, words, Zentangles, and other forms that don't have names but just pop up. Lots of my doodles are not an artistic success. But when I look back over the more than 60 or 70 I've done since COVID and meditative doodling started, I see what I'm passionate about, what moves me and has meaning for me. I see that some topics come up again and again, maybe because they're dear to my heart, or because they are a recurring feeling or an unresolved challenge or issue. In any case, altogether, the doodles are an amazing graphic representation of where my head was each week since the pandemic started, and I'm thankful for that record.
This week's Share the Plate goes to Guatemalan Scholarship Partners. UUCA has supported the Guatemalan Scholarship Partners, a program organized by the Mayan human rights group Adivima, for 12 years. Each child is from a family whose members were killed by the military during the government genocide in the 1980s, leaving many orphans who grew up illiterate. Last year, through generous donations, the UUCA's efforts funded 22 middle and high school students, all of whom are the children of those orphans. During the pandemic, many students have been struggling with food scarcity and the inability to access remote learning. Thanks to the help of UUCA, our UU partners in Golden, Colorado, and Adivima in Guatemala, the students can do their classwork via shared cell phones and data plans, borrowed computers, and worksheets so they can keep up with their education. Please see this week's Connections newsletter for the many options you can use to donate to this worthy cause. Our offertory prayer reminds us, let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. Let us be grateful even for our needs so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the gentle night to you. Moon
For the last year and a half, I've been pursuing a passion that is literally a labor of love, powerlifting. In case you are unfamiliar with this term, powerlifting refers to a type of weightlifting that focuses on 3 exercises: the deadlift, the squat, and bench press. The term powerlifting is apt because doing these exercises takes a huge amount of, well, power. When using proper form, each of these lifts requires one to use almost every muscle in the body. The lifts are very hard work, and doing them is not pleasant. One famous lifter referred to heavy squats as, quote, soul-sucking. While this may be a slight exaggeration, it's not far from the truth. So why would anyone in their right mind do such exercises, and why am I talking about them with you today? Sure, there are obvious practical benefits to this hobby. For example, powerlifting is incredibly beneficial for one's health, and there are many studies showing the benefits of weightlifting for one's physical and emotional well-being. But of course, this is true for many other forms of exercise as well. Why talk about lifting heavy weights during a church service? Let me share 4 reasons that may be surprising given the stereotypes associated with this brutish-looking form of exercise. The first is that weightlifting is more complex and nuanced than it appears. It takes years to become an accomplished lifter, and the learning never ends. If any of you have done yoga, you understand that one can practice a relatively simple posture for years, if not decades, and constantly refine one's ability to express that pose fully. Now imagine bringing that same body awareness and control to an activity where you are moving hundreds of pounds. Small changes in body position and muscle activation can make a huge difference. Like yoga, dance, or other body-centered practices, the chase for perfection is manifested physically in this practice. There's another connection between powerlifting and yoga: breath. I'm sure many of you know that breath is a powerful tool for connecting the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Breath control is an art that goes back thousands of years, and modern science has validated the many ways that it can affect our brain in positive ways. Well, it turns out that breath control is a critically important aspect of powerlifting. The depth, timing, and frequency of one's breathing has a huge impact on one's ability to lift heavy loads. So, without knowing it, powerlifters are actually practicing pranayama and obtaining the benefits that come from that practice. Who knew? A related benefit that I obtain from powerlifting is that it forces me to be present. When I'm lifting weights, I am 100% focused on that activity. My concentration is complete and total. As I'm sure many of you can relate, there's a wonderful freedom and sense of relief when one is in a flow state and not stuck in the lather, rinse, repeat cycle of worries, fantasies, and to-do lists that are constantly rolling around in our heads. Nothing brings my attention to the present moment like the uh-oh feeling that happens when I feel a heavy weight pressing against my body. Finally, powerlifting is one of the best ways that I know to grow up. What do I mean by that? Well, as I've mentioned, the actual process of lifting weights can be quite uncomfortable. Because of that, my brain often tries to find ways to make things easier. The problem is that sometimes what feels easier isn't what's needed. I may need to work harder or be more uncomfortable than I'd like to achieve proper form or put in the level of effort needed to lift a given weight. At other times, my brain simply wants to avoid the work completely. It starts to come up with lots of excuses for why I shouldn't go to the gym, or if I'm already at the gym, why I shouldn't give my all to the upcoming set. At times, I am truly scared of what I'm about to do. Yet, I grow every time I face down my fear and ignore my mental whining. Progress comes from showing up consistently and working hard consistently, even when I don't feel like it. I feel a deep sense of satisfaction and even joy when I honor my commitment to growth, even when it's uncomfortable. While it appears that I'm only exercising my body, I am actually exercising my mind and spirit as well. There you have it. If any of you want to learn more about weightlifting, and the ways that it has affected my wife and daughters, all of whom are now addicted to it, please reach out anytime. Thank you and have a happy Labor Day.
From the light of days remembered shines a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our minds and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
We'd like to thank you for joining us today. We'd like to thank you for being here. And we'd like to encourage you to take a little time this weekend to do something that you're passionate about, to fill up your soul a little bit, to generate that energy, and to go into the week and the year recharged and renewed and full of passion in life.